Frustrations in Madrid, while jubilation could be on its way for a certain contract being signed, but there is some concern about interest from abroad in one of Arsenal's key starters. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is incredibly appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. I hope your start to the week has been good. You've made it to Wednesday, halfway through, which kind of is in a way like a quarter of the way through this extended international break for Arsenal. Of course, in terms of the men's team, at least, we aren't playing again until the 1st of April. Still a good just under 2 weeks away, but hopefully this is inching ever so closer to that Arsenal game returning and more consistent news dropping. But to be fair, there's been quite a lot to suffice in these remaining days, which I think is important to consider. But good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Hope you're doing good and well. Shari, Blackshine, Guarantee Poos, Mr. Reed, Jamie, Jamil, Hooded Gooner, Rowan, Blackshine, Silky. I know I end up saying the same names like 3 times, but it's I should do better at that. I should have recognized the names I've already said, but it's a tough task. Matt G, Tom, James, Ken, Paul, other Paul, Jitty, Morgie, Rancid, Kirill, Rob, Carlton, and plenty more of you guys and girls in the chat box as well. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Very much appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Right, let's jump to today's stories, shall we? We begin with, of course, last night's frustrating game between Real Madrid and Arsenal, something of a prelude to the men's game with the women's team. Sadly, losing 2-0 in the Spanish capital, which obviously is not a result that they would have wanted or hoped for. Arsenal were the better team, you could argue, on the day. Plenty more opportunities for them than for their opponents. But Linda Caicedo and Athenia, brilliant name, Athenia del Castillo, scored on the 82nd minute to really give something of a sucker punch to Arsenal. They will return, of course, to the Emirates next week, where you can still, of course, be in attendance. Brilliant opportunity to get to a game at the Emirates Stadium, of course. If you are able to go and support the women's team, I recommend you go and do it because, it would be fantastic to see so many people there and available to support. I'm gutted I can't go. I've got an event on that Wednesday evening, but it's going to be hopefully a really, really positive turnaround next Wednesday, and we'll see the girls smash it. Fingers crossed. But as people are pointing out, the pitch was awful and played a huge part in this, and in those circumstances are very, 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 very frustrating. But that will be the complete opposite of the Emirates. So maybe, just maybe, we will see a turnaround in North London. We can keep those fingers crossed, indeed. In terms of the men's side of things, Gabriel Magalhaes contract talks, to my knowledge, remain ongoing. And certainly something the club are very calm about. However, there have been reports yesterday, Ben Jacobs reporting that there is continued interest from Saudi Arabian sides in signing Gabriel Magalhaes in the summer. Suggestions are that Arsenal would not accept anything less than 100 million euros for the player, so around 85 million pounds for Gabriel. I don't know why he'd leave, obviously, other than money. We've known that there's been Saudi interest in Gabriel in the past. We know that Arsenal have kind of had to deal with that period, if you like, where Gabriel was out of the team. It was said at the time that tactical reasons were the reason why he was not being used, but as soon as the window closed, he came straight back into the team. So, yeah, it's hard to not spiral with conspiracies as to that time, as to maybe that Gabriel's a little bit unsettled and has had had at that time his head turned. In terms of his contract, it does run out in 2027. Arsenal do need to get a move on, just like with Saliba and just like with Saka. Both of their contracts also running out in 2027. So he'll have 2 years left on his deal come the end of this season. Arsenal will need to do their absolute utmost to try and secure an extension to the Brazilian's Brazilian's deal. But fingers crossed. There is, as I said before, there's some calmness about this, about his contract. So hopefully all will be okay. And lastly, on to Bukayo Saka. Sammy Mokbel of the Mail reporting yesterday, as he is, and a big congratulations, by the way, to Sammy, who's completed his own transfer, if you like. He's moved on from the Mail and is now working as a senior figure for the BBC. So fantastic move for Sammy. And as a senior football correspondent at the BBC's, one of his earliest reports has been to talk about Bukayo Saka and how Arsenal are set to open contract talks with Saka. He has obviously been unavailable and injured for quite some time, but there is a real interest from Arsenal, as no surprise to anyone, that they want to continue with Saka at the club. His contract runs out in 2027. He'll be amazingly 25. How scary is that Saka will be 25 come the end of his contract? Well, Arsenal will be hoping to lock him into, of course, a brand new one, potentially another pay rise, making him one of the highest paid players in the Premier League, not just at Arsenal. But Bukayo Saka's contract talks are said to be something that was set to take place. Again, my information is Arsenal are very calm about this, that they are very confident that they will indeed be successful in any talks with Saka over a new deal. They know his love for the club, his desire to have success with Arsenal, his desire to win things with Arsenal. And of course, Arsenal's best chances of winning things will be with Bukayo Saka as well. So that's the news on the front of two players, and particularly their contracts. Not loads. I think you can expect kind of this similar thread of a shorter part one over the next fortnight or so, with it being so quiet on this front. But if you've got questions, now is the time where, of course, we'll be tackling some of your comments. In fact, we might even be able to get some of your phone calls on if there is an interest to do so. If you want to jump on and give some of your thoughts about where things are, your thoughts about where your head's at, then drop me a message and we'll see if we can sort that out. No promises, but we'll see if there's any interest in that. But let's go to part two, your questions and more, right after this. Okay, this is part two of the show where we'll be jumping into the chat box and tackling some of your thoughts, some of your questions, and more, of course. So if you have indeed got any, now is the time to jump in with a capital Q in the chat. It really does help them to stand out amongst the other comments that are ongoing, the conversations that are being had. And we'll do our best to try and tackle as many of these as is feasibly possible at this time. Let's go first of all to let's go to Martin. Says you would only go to a Mickey Mouse league like that only for money. I mean, yeah, like the Saudi Arabian league is not a league you go to for any kind of sporting merit, in my opinion. You go there in order to earn a significant amount of money. And that is kind of that is it. Yes, there is a desire on that side to improve the competitivity of the league, to make it one of the better leagues and to improve its reputation. But that is being achieved by attracting players of a certain level by paying them huge sums of money. And that's why they're moving there as well. Paul says, got my ticket for Arsenal Real Madrid yesterday. It would have been cheaper getting Taylor Swift tickets. Of course, the ballot, I think, did open for the men's side of things in terms of Arsenal taking on Real Madrid. Let us know if you were lucky in the ballot. If indeed you weren't, you have to go into the ticket exchange. If any, of course, rare tickets are available for what is obviously such a massive, massive fixture for that game. But let us know if you are indeed successful. Tizer says, we have to respect the players who come from poorer backgrounds and countries will have their heads turned by Saudi money so they can support wider their family into the future. I hear that, but obviously from a point of view of Arsenal, in particular with Gabriel at Arsenal, he's going to get a very good wage at Arsenal still. You know, you're going to be looking at Gabriel getting paid close to, if not more than £200,000 per week, I think. He's going to get a very good wage at Arsenal, respective in that kind of area as well. But yes, this is a fair point. And we have seen a lot of kind of South American and African players move over to the Saudi leagues in order to gain, significantly higher payment than they were, of course, earning, and could even imagine when they were younger, earning as well. Soatan says, Tom, I think Saliba, Maslow, Skelly and Gabriel should study Real Madrid's front three. Lewis Skelly should study Jude Bellingham, and Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo and Saliba should be studying Mbappe. Maybe we might have a chance, don't you think? Of course, this is an opportunity for those players while they are on the international break to work with those players. Miles Lewis Skelly and Declan Rice will be working with Jude. Saliba, of course, will be working with Mbappe, and Gabriel will be working with Vinny Jr. It's a very good point. I actually love that point from Sowetan. I think that's a really well worked thought process. So yes, they are going to get a little bit of an inside scoop, if you do, to that. I haven't even thought about that. So yeah, that's a great point. So we're going to get the inside scoop on Real Madrid. So that's definitely given me some inspiration this morning. So yeah, you can expect maybe an article talking about that later. Inside scoop on Vinny Jr., Mbappe, and Bellingham. I like that. That's great. Moving forwards, checks in the post. Wilson says, do you think Arsenal need to lock contracts down for Saliba, Gabriel and Saka in terms of avoiding the situation that Liverpool are currently in with their key players? I think it goes without saying, Wilson, doesn't it? Absolutely goes without saying. We need to try and lock in those players. Van and Duty says, what top strikers are represented by Jorge Mendes, as he has a good relationship with Berta? It may make any potential deals for those potential transfer targets doable. Jorge Mendes, I believe the agency is Gestifoot, which if you go onto the Transfermarkt website, you'll see plenty of Portuguese players, of course, Portuguese-speaking players, but also plenty of other players as well. In terms of forwards, Bradley Barcola is one of those potential options. In fact, it was going to be something that I was going to write about this afternoon, the likelihood of Bradley Barcola to Arsenal with the Jorge Mendes links, because that is something that indeed Arsenal may be able to exploit. No, exploit's the right word, but just have that extra better connection with Berta in there as well. But you've got Warren Zaire Emery, you've got Vitinha, there's quite a few PSG players here, of course, Gonçalo Ramos, a few Man United players, Lenny Yoro and Manuel Ugarte, a few Manchester City players like Ruben Diaz and Bernardo Silva, Nico Gonzalez, of course, as well, and Mateus Nunez. Fair few players there at Manchester United. You've got Francisco Conceição, the Juve player, I believe, formerly of Porto, the son of Conceição, Sergio Conceição, the AC Milan manager. João Felix, of course, also there. Ederson, Fabio Vieira, also another player that Arsenal will need to be looking to try and move on in the summer. But I think the one that stands out above most there, you would have to say is Bradley Barcola. You'd have to look at him as the guy. Absolutely, 100%. Elizabeth says Saka is a flop in big games. Oh my goodness me, Elizabeth's not watched much of Saka, clearly. Scoring against Liverpool, scoring against United, scoring against Chelsea, scoring against Spurs. Yes. Scoring against Bayern last season. Such a flop in big games. Ben says, thoughts on inserting Calafiori for Gabriel? If we get 100 million fee for him, I think Calafiori is primed for success and would be a no-brainer if the fee is right. Love the work. Well, these are the balances you have to do. If you get a bid for Gabriel that is like a huge sum of money that you'd never get before, that you could reinvest. I mean, Gabriel is what, 27? Turns 28 at the end of this year, so it's still very much in his prime. I still think I don't think I'd entertain anything right now. And obviously, he was in the last year of his contract, and we got a huge bid. Then, sure, maybe, but otherwise, no. Brantail says we should enter next week's attack heavy, but why Arsenal not confirming what is happening with the current loan deals? I think with the loan situations that Arsenal have right now, and the players, of course, that are on the roster. We have Sambi Lokonga as an option with Sevilla. Don't know whether or not that would be activated. We should probably do a quick look at how many games he's played for Sevilla this season. Is it likely that he is going to get that? I mean, he played 17 matches. I know he had an injury at the start of the season, so he does start the majority of their games, it would be fair to say. And they do have an option to make that deal permanent. He spoke, of course, I think when he joined about hoping to stay at Seville for the foreseeable future as well. He's just come back from another hamstring injury, so he's gradually being reintegrated into the group. He did play in the Copa del Rey as Seville lost to Udi Almeria. I mean, Sevilla are pretty dreadful at the moment. They are not the Sevilla of the past. They currently sit 10th in the table, but they're only 3 points off 14th. They're only 6 points off relegation. Sorry, 9 points, I should say, off relegation. It's not a very good Sevilla side that are not really looking in contention for those European places right now. They're city rivals, Real Betis, have become the much more competitive Seville-based side of late as well. You've got Nuno Tavares as an obligation to leave. Fabio Vieira is only a loan at the moment. Reece Nelson is also only a dry loan and is obviously out with a significant hamstring injury. He had to have a procedure on to fix. Carl Hein is on loan at Real Valladolid, currently side bottom of La Liga and will go down. But it's good experience for a goalkeeper to be under as much pressure and testing as he has been under. And then Marquinhos, of course, is on loan to the end of the year, so he won't sort out his future until January of next year. So no. Sesan says, good morning, Tom. How realistic is it for getting Isak, Sesko, Zubimendi and Williams? Oh, no, you're not going to get both Isak and Sesko. It would be one or the other. And of course, if you go for Isak and spend well over 100 million on him, it could be what stops Arsenal from spending more money on some other players. Zubimendi, there's obviously a very good chance, I think, on him. Nico Williams, Arsenal will definitely be one of the teams that are going to be in the ring, I think, for trying to sign Williams, of course, in the summer. Wilson says, my only worry about Isak is that he is injury prone, and that is a massive concern. I wrote about this yesterday, and I said there is obviously always that risk as well that we might see him injured. If you spend a huge amount of money on Isak and then he gets injured, that puts you in a really, really dangerous position, So we have to be careful when it comes to considering that amount of investment on a player. Sowetan says, do you think Fabio Vieira will be called back from loan? I mean, he won't return from loan until the end of the season. It's only a dry loan. There's no option in that deal with Porto, so he will come back. Arsenal had the option at some point in the winter to recall him, but they decided against that. I actually think that was a bit of a mistake, it turns out, in the end, especially if they weren't going to sign anybody during that window. Ryan says, Tom, do you think Raheem Sterling's confidence has shifted to the positive, or has he passed his prime so much he's a bit of a lost cause? We won't really know, Ryan, until he plays another game. His last game against PSV was good, much, much better, but we won't see him against Real Madrid. The next chance we will see him is against Fulham at home, and I imagine that would be coming off the bench. Let's see if indeed he does look a better version of himself by then. Ashley says, with Partey and Jorginho leaving, we only have 5: Odegaard, Ethan, Rice, Marino, and Zubi, potentially with an asterisk there for now. Mazlou Skelly at left back, names like Anguissa, Norgard, Decore on a free, Frankie de Jong, Brandt, Timber. That's Quentin Timber, who I believe suffering a significant injury, won't be moving in the summer. Lamina have 1 year left. Any would suffice for me. Well, I think, Ashley, that Arsenal can, of course, go out and do more business in the midfield. I think I'd like to see Arsenal bring in kind of a box-to-box figure that's a lot more offensive-minded, more of an attacking-minded midfielder as well, to give Odegaard some of that support, to give the left 8 position something different. I think, obviously, Max Dowman coming through is a key thing. I think Mazlou Skelly still will be considered as an option in midfield. We don't know if Zinchenko is going to leave because he's featured in midfield some more this season as well. So maybe we start to see that next season more if he indeed does stay, but we don't know if he's going to stay. Walker says, for the right salary, I really want Osimhen. I think his attributes are really needed in our squad. What are your thoughts? I mean, unfortunately, the wages are, so as I've mentioned a number of times on the channel, Osimhen's wages are a big, big obstacle when it comes to any potential move to Arsenal, sadly. And I think he will probably end up in Saudi as a result. Wilson says, Saka is a bit of a flop in the big games. This guy usually delivers in the big games. Wake up and smell the coffee. Bloody hell. Wilson summing that up pretty well. Gooner says, Tom, if we get Sesko, we could get another forward for what they want for Isak as well. Exactly. I mean, that is what you're balancing is if you sign Isak, you're committing a massive chunk of money, if it's even possible. Secondly, if you sign a Sesko, for instance, for like half that price, then arguably you can go out and bring in another really top forward as well. For some people, Sesko is not good enough. For some people feel that Benjamin Sesko is not delivering enough right now to justify signing him as a 21-year-old and that it would take him time to give an immediate impact or that his immediate impact would not be good enough. Well, he has 17 goals in 36 matches this season in the Bundesliga. He's continuing to have good form. He got an assist in their 2-0 win over Borussia Dortmund in their most recent fixture. this is a guy that does turn up in big games. He's already scored against Bayern this season. He scored against Frankfurt this season. He scored against Dortmund this season. He's got an assist against Bayer Leverkusen already this season as well. In the Champions League, he scored against Atletico Madrid. He scored twice against Juventus. He scored against Sporting in a game against, of course, Victor Gyökeres as well. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, this guy does score in big games and he scores in big moments and he's already scoring at a very young age and he's playing for a relatively lacking in terms of creativity RB Leipzig side this season. So from that perspective, I'm looking at Sesko still as a very viable option for Arsenal in the summer. Misaka says Victor Gyökeres or Sesko. The thing with Victor Gyökeres, of course, is that there is arguably a greater risk associated with him compared to Sesko because he's currently playing for the best team in Portugal in a league where you're nowhere near as tested as you are in, say, the Bundesliga with RB Leipzig, for instance. And for that reason, you're paying more money for a player who is older, that, yes, has delivered a ridiculous number of goals for Sporting, but there are these risks associated with him. He'll be turning 27 in the summer. He's got 40 goals in 41 games this season, which is an absolute joke. And after a little bit of a dip during the winter months, he has, of course, returned to some goal-scoring form once again. A goal against AVS, 2 goals against Estoril, 2 goals against Casapia, and a goal against Famalicão as well in his most 4 recent games. He has 6 in his last 4 with an assist as well against Famalicão in that 3-1 win. But you look at the oppositions of these teams that he's scoring against, and that ultimately does raise concerns about, is he going to be able to translate that ability? Now, you can only beat what's in front of you, of course. And if he was to sign for Arsenal, I think there really would be a buzz and excitement about this, about Arsenal signing one of the most prolific, at least in what he is able to determine in terms of what he's producing, one of the most prolific players. In the Champions League this season, we know that he scored against Manchester City 3 times. Of course, 2 of those were penalties. He scored against Sturm Graz, he scored against Lille, and he scored against Leipzig as well in that game where he came off the bench to score, to see off, but of course ended up getting knocked out in the last 16. Sorry, in the the last 32 in the knockout round against Borussia Dortmund, where he played only 31 minutes. He was not fit enough. He did suffer with an injury issue partway through the season, some thigh problems, and ultimately that did see Sporting get knocked out. So if Gyökeres was to sign for Arsenal, I think it would be it would without doubt be an exciting deal that Arsenal would have done, and there would be a real anticipation about what Gyökeres could do in the Premier League. But the problem with this deal is that you are taking a big risk on a player that is not played in that level of competition. He did do well playing in the Championship, got 22 goals for Coventry, of course, in his final season, got to that playoff final. But would he be able to translate his ability from Portugal to the Premier League? That we won't ultimately know until that happens. The question mark you've got, is it a bigger risk to pay 60 or so million for Sesko at 21 years of age, who's already playing in one of Europe's top 5 leagues, is producing some really good numbers in a team that aren't necessarily the most creative and aren't necessarily providing him with the best in terms of creativity? You've got a player in Gyökeres who scores more regularly than Sesko right now, but plays in a team that are very dominant in a league with far less impressive players, especially defensively in Portugal, and is going to cost you about £20 million more perhaps than what Sesko is going to cost. Or do you go with Alexander Isak, who is the most expensive, but gives you the most guarantees in terms of Premier League ready and ultimately is on great form, but of the 3 has the worst injury record? And these 3, I think there is a real kind of feel about the balance across these 3. I think whoever Arsenal sign, there is a level of risk with each. And obviously, the cheaper you go, it opens you up more to be able to spend in other areas as well. If you sign a Sesko or a Gyökeres, you could arguably spend more in other areas too than what you would have with Alexander Isak, of course. So it's a difficult one. Knowledge says, Tom, being risk averse in January is what cost us our league title challenge. I don't agree with that because I personally don't think there was a risk Arsenal could have taken in January in the market that took them to the title. I think the gap was already too big. And I think, secondly, there wasn't a player that would have turned Arsenal into, again, a title challenging team. I just don't see who that was. But in terms of risks worth taking, this is a very different type of risk scenario, because this is the risk that genuinely can define Arsenal's next few years in terms of the success, in terms of the titles. It could define Arteta's tenure as a coach, this decision. The worst case scenario is they don't do anything, which we can't actually rule out. I mean, I would highly think that unlikely, but we can't rule it out. You cannot rule out that idea that we might not do anything, because it's Arsenal. At the end of the day, it's Arsenal. So, yeah, we need to be aware of that. We need to be cautious of that. We need to be absolutely, totally aware that that is something that could happen. So bear that in mind. Ryan says, Tom, do you think that Max Dowman has the upper body strength at 15 years old to play first team minutes next year? Should we give him another year to mature as well? Ryan, I think it's a good question. I think that the issue you have is we're talking about a child, 15 years of age. We don't know until he gets the opportunity. What we do know is that he's been training a very long time with the Arsenal first team and is regularly given opportunities to play and work with them. I've heard some really good things behind the scenes about what he's doing in training with some of those players. So, I think there's a good chance that we could see it next season, but we will have to wait and see. Brantel says, I think the depth of the squad will be the most important item for next season. Having options that covers us in terms of injuries is absolutely critical. I think you're spot on. Oliver says, I think we should go for two of them, even if it means selling Martinelli. I don't think you can go for two of the centre forwards. I just don't think you can. I mean, if you're having a negotiation with any of those players, say if you sign Isak and then you go to Sesko, or even if you sign Gyökeres and you go to Sesko, we want to make you the guy. Hold on, you just signed Gyökeres. Am I going to be the guy? You just signed this striker. I'm probably not. I'm better off going somewhere else, aren't I? That's going to play regular minutes. I don't think you can sign both. I don't think it's logistically possible. Fizzy says Isak's signing would fit and lift the players around him like the signing of Jesus did in 2022 during our top four battle days. Murphy and Gordon are better because of Isak. Sign Isak at all costs. Adam says, do you feel like there is a certain death of the free kick specialist? Used to have Beckham, Pirlo, Henry. Now I struggle to think of anyone that's deemed a free kick specialist besides Bruno Fernandes. It is something that has trailed off. There aren't as many free kick specialists today as there used to be. Certainly not. James Ward-Prowse, of course, another player we think of quite consistently as a very impressive free kick taker, probably the best in the Premier League alongside Fernandes. So it is something that has dropped away. I think because set pieces in general are something that aren't as direct anymore. Teams don't tend to give away as many fouls on the edge of the box. Think about how many times Arsenal actually get the chance to take a free kick on the edge of the box these days. It's not that often. And we are the biggest kind of team that work in and around the box in the league, and we don't get too many. So I guess that's why there's less stock put into the free kick specialist these days. But it would be helpful if we had someone who's perhaps more. And I do feel that maybe Declan Rice should be getting the opportunity to take some more of these as well. Libark says the right thing to do would be Sesko and a winger. That's of high caliber. The ambitious thing to do would be to go and sign Isak. In my opinion, Sesko is a top-class Sesko and a top-class winger is also still very ambitious. Jonathan says if we had signed Asensio and Rashford on loan, I'm sure that we would be up there with Liverpool. We would also be in the FA Cup as well. I mean, it's easy to say that. I mean, Rashford hasn't been amazing since signing for Villa. He's been okay. Asensio has been great since signing for them. But, of course, they've had Watkins missing. So they've had that kind of figure to put Asensio into that kind of position where he is more, you know me, I'm a big fan of Marco Asensio. And I would have loved to have seen him in an Arsenal shirt just for my own selfish reasons. But It's I think the Rashford one we couldn't have done anyway, Jonathan, because we weren't able to because of the loan restrictions. You can only sign two players on loan, and we couldn't cancel either two of the loans because you need to have agreements from all three parties in order to do that. But Marco Asensio, Jonathan, I will give you. If Marco Asensio could have been signed on loan, that's definitely something that we probably should have done. Better than not signing anybody, isn't it? But I don't agree with you that we would have been up there with Liverpool, and I don't agree that we may have been in the FA Cup, but I don't agree with that. Nick says Rashford getting a call up over Ethan is ridiculous. It's to do with experience and seniority, and Ethan's of course taking a step up to the under-21s by I think 2 levels. He's not played for the under-20s, he's not played for the under-21s. He's still taking a big step up to the under-21s. But I see where you're coming from. Soup says flair players in general have dropped away. Tactics have been more suppressed in creativity in that respect as well. It's absolutely true. Brantel says, any chance of Charlie Patino coming back next season? No, Charlie Patino's not really done anything even while playing for Deportivo de La Coruña. You know, he's played 4 times this season. He's been on the bench a lot. He's been not even in the squad quite a bit. He's not played much football at all. 7 minutes here, 45 minutes here, 11 minutes here. It's quite sad, actually, how far he has kind of fallen, you know, since joining through. Axel says, sorry, Tom, just joined. Dream summer window for you. Is it signing Patrick Schick? It's been on Formula. Patrick Schick, right, you know, for those that listen to the channel for a while, you know, a couple of years ago when Patrick Schick was 26, 27, I was talking about him a lot. This season, he's got 23 goals in 36 games. Patrick Schick's doing excellently. 17 Bundesliga goals in 23 games. I don't know what his contract situation is. His contract expires in 27. It's probably going to be too late for Patrick Schick, but my goodness me. I do feel like I called that Patrick Schick one right. I know he did have a serious injury in I think, last season, but I feel that like 2 years ago, we should have got on the Patrick Schick hype. I would have hyped to Leverkusen to go and get him. Yeah, I'm really gutted we didn't go for Patrick Schick when we could have gone for Patrick Schick back then. That was really the time I think we probably could have done. He's had some serious injury issues, and whether or not that would have happened at Arsenal, we don't know. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a real shame. Suga says, as crazy as it seems, what are the chances for Max Dowman to get a start as a 15-year-old for the first team? I mean, when does he turn 16? He would turn 16 in December. So, yeah, there is a good chance. There's definitely a chance. Well, not this season, but next season. Yeah, there's definitely a chance we could see that. Ryan says, Tom, to you, is William Saliba available in the summer at any price? If so, what price? I mean, if he was, it would have to be like well over 100 million quid. Well over 100 million quid. It would have to be. Have to be. Nikkei says, anyone that you would take for free in the summer, I would take Adama Traore. Him coming off the bench in later stages of games would be dangerous. Jonathan David, I don't think is a bad shout at all in terms of kind of a player that is a player that is leaving. Contracts expiring. Let's have a quick look at that list again. I know we've looked at it before, but I do think that is something that we could look at. Jonathan David, Leroy Sané, Mohamed Salah. Definitely ones. I think Angel Gomez is an interesting one at Lille. His contract's expiring. Already been called up for the England squad a couple of times. 25 years of age. Definitely one I think maybe to look out for as a smart piece of business on a free transfer. I think he's the top player you'd probably see Aston Villa or Newcastle or someone like that go for. Or like Aina, we've talked about before as being a defensive acquisition as well. Somebody to potentially look at as a kind of a versatile attacking fullback as well. But defensively, Tyrick Mitchell at left back could be a good replacement as well for, you know, some of the ones that we could be losing in Tierney and Kivior and Zinchenko in the summer as well. So yeah, there's definitely some players that are there. Right, we're going to bring the show to a close. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in, listening in, and asking your questions. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your Wednesday. And I will see you, of course, tomorrow morning, bright and early, for the next episode. Maybe there's some more transfer news to discuss. There'll be plenty more questions, I'm sure, of yours to answer. Thank you so much, as always, for continuing to tune in. It is always very much appreciated during this international break that you guys do tune in and listen. I know it can be very tempted to kind of take some time off. And I always say, if you want to take some time off, there's no shame in that at all. It's important to take breaks and take yourself away from things when you need to. But thank you so much, as always, continuing to support us here and to listen. Just by tuning in, you are helping out. If you want to help out even more, drop a like. If you want to help out even more than that, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe. I also, if you are a Patreon listener of the Arsenal Vision podcast, I was joining Elliot yesterday for his Power Rankings episode. So if you are a Patreon listener over at the Arsenal Vision, you can go and check out my chat with Elliot. I am scaling down a lot of kind of my stuff I do outside of here, but it's always an absolute pleasure to join Elliot on the Vision. So go and check that out. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.